You know that feeling, that weight. It sits in your chest before you even open your eyes. Another morning, same storm inside your head. The thoughts come fast. You're not enough. This won't work. What if everything falls apart? Different day, same reaction. You try to push them away, they push back harder. You try to ignore them, they get louder. You fight, you resist, you exhaust yourself before breakfast. Fear whispers, anger burns. Anxiety wraps around your throat like a fist that won't let go. And here's the truth nobody tells you. Fighting yourself is the loneliest war you'll ever wage. You scroll, you distract, you numb, anything to stop the noise. But the noise? It follows, because it's coming from inside. You weren't supposed to live like this. Trapped in your own mind, controlled by feelings you didn't choose, reacting instead of responding, surviving instead of living. But what if I told you there's another way? What if the problem isn't the thoughts themselves, but what you've been taught to do with them? What if you could face fear without being paralyzed by it? Meet anger without being consumed? Sit with anxiety without losing yourself? You can. And that's exactly what we're about to explore. This isn't theory. This is freedom. This is your moment. If you're ready to start this journey right now, drop "Today I begin" in the comments. Make this commitment real. Let's begin. Let me ask you something honest. How much of your life have you already lost to this internal battle? How many conversations did you miss because your mind was somewhere else, replaying an argument or rehearsing a disaster that hasn't happened yet? How many moments of joy slipped past you because anxiety convinced you that the other shoe was about to drop? Think about yesterday, last week, last year. How much energy did you burn just trying to feel okay? How many decisions did you avoid because fear told you that you'd fail? How much time have you spent angry at things you cannot change, people you cannot control, outcomes that were never in your hands to begin with? Here's what's heartbreaking. Most people spend decades of their lives this way. They never question it. They assume this is just how life is, that everyone feels trapped inside their own head, that overthinking is normal, that constant emotional turbulence is the price of being human. But it's not. And somewhere deep down, you already know this. That's why you're here. That's why something inside you is refusing to accept this as your permanent reality. You've reached a turning point. Maybe it was a breakdown. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe you just woke up one morning and realized you can't keep living at war with yourself. Whatever brought you here, you've arrived at the most important recognition a human being can have. This has to change. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because the cost of staying the same is too high. You're too young to feel this old, too alive to feel this numb, too capable to feel this powerless. The voice inside that says, there must be more than this, that voice is right. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to become someone different to find peace. You don't need to fix yourself because you're not broken. You don't need to eliminate every negative thought because that's impossible and unnecessary. What you need is a new way of relating to what's happening inside you. You need to understand what's actually within your control and what isn't. You need to learn how to observe your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. You need ancient tools that have already helped millions of people navigate exactly what you're going through. You need what the Stoics knew. And that's where we're going next. 2,000 years ago, in the heart of ancient Rome and Greece, there were people facing the same struggles you're facing right now. They dealt with loss, betrayal, uncertainty, fear of the future, anger at injustice, the weight of responsibility, the ache of anxiety. But some of them found a way to remain calm in the chaos, to stay grounded when everything around them was falling apart, to face hardship without being destroyed by it. These people were called Stoics. They weren't monks hiding in mountains. They were emperors, slaves, soldiers, and teachers. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire while battling plagues and wars. Epictetus was born into slavery and built a philosophy of freedom from chains. Seneca advised tyrants and faced his own execution with grace. They lived messy, complicated, dangerous lives, and yet they discovered something that changed everything. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's Marcus Aurelius, written in his private journal during one of the darkest periods of Roman history. He wasn't writing for publication. He was writing to remind himself how to stay sane. And here's why this matters to you right now. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel pain. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about understanding the difference between what you can control and what you can't, and pouring all your energy into what's actually in your power. Think about that for a second. Most of your suffering comes from trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. Other people's opinions, past mistakes, future outcomes, the weather, traffic, how someone responds to your text message. You exhaust yourself trying to manage the unmanageable. But your response to all of it, that's yours. Your thoughts about what happens, yours. Your actions moving forward, completely yours. Epictetus put it simply, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is something much more powerful. It's taking full responsibility for the one thing you actually control, your inner world. Your mind is the only territory you truly govern, and right now you've let fear, anger, and anxiety stage a coup. They've taken over. They're running the show. But you can take it back. Not by fighting harder, not by resisting more, but by understanding the game you're actually playing and learning to play it with wisdom instead of panic. The Stoics spent lifetimes refining this wisdom, and now it's yours. Let's put it to work. Before you can master your emotions, you need to understand what they actually are. Fear, anger, anxiety. These aren't your enemies, they're messengers. They're your brain's way of trying to protect you. Fear says, danger ahead, prepare yourself. Anger says, a boundary has been crossed, defend what matters. Anxiety says, something feels uncertain, stay alert. In the right context, these emotions are useful. If a car is speeding toward you, fear gets you out of the way. If someone harms someone you love, anger mobilizes you to act. If you've got an important deadline, a little anxiety keeps you focused. The problem isn't that you feel these emotions. The problem is that your brain hasn't updated its software. Your nervous system was designed for a world where threats were immediate and physical. A lion in the grass, a rival tribe, a cliff edge in the dark. In those situations, fear and anger and anxiety kept you alive. But now? Your brain treats a difficult email the same way it treats a predator. It reacts to social rejection like it's life or death. It floods your body with stress hormones because you're worried about something that might happen next month. Your emotions are doing their job, but they're doing it in a world they weren't built for. And here's where the Stoics offer you a lifeline. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Read that again. Most of your fear isn't about what's happening right now. It's about what might happen. Most of your anger isn't about the present moment. It's about the story you're telling yourself about the present moment. Most of your anxiety isn't rooted in actual danger. It's rooted in uncertainty about the future. You're not fighting reality. You're fighting your thoughts about reality. And that changes everything. Because while you can't control whether someone insults you, you can control whether you let that insult define your worth. You can't control whether you lose your job, but you can control whether you interpret that loss as the end of your story or the beginning of something new. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Your estimate, your interpretation, your story. That's where the battle is really happening. Not out there in the world. In here, between your ears. So when fear shows up, you don't have to obey it. You can acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, and then decide whether it's giving you useful information or just outdated programming. When anger rises, you don't have to be consumed by it. You can pause, examine what triggered it, and choose a response that serves you instead of one that destroys you. When anxiety grips you, you don't have to believe everything it tells you. You can breathe, ground yourself in the present, and remind yourself of what's actually true right now. This is the shift. From being controlled by your emotions to being aware of them. And awareness? That's where your power lives. All right, you understand the philosophy. Now let's talk about what you actually do when fear, anger, or anxiety show up at your door. Because knowing the principles is one thing, living them is another. Let's start with fear. Fear loves the future. It lives in the land of what if. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if everything goes wrong? The Stoics had a practice for this. They called it premeditatio malorum, which sounds fancy but just means imagine the worst that could happen. Now, this isn't about spiraling into catastrophic thinking. It's the opposite. It's about looking your fear directly in the face and asking, okay, what's the actual worst-case scenario here? And if that happened, could I handle it? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Seneca used to practice poverty once a month. He'd sleep on the floor, eat simple food, wear rough clothes. Why? To prove to himself that even if he lost everything, he'd survive. To remove the terror of the unknown. You can do a version of this. Afraid of losing your job? Imagine it happens. What would you do? You'd update your resume, reach out to your network, maybe take a different path you've been avoiding. It would be hard, yes. But would it destroy you? Probably not. Afraid of rejection? Imagine hearing no. It stings. You feel disappointed. And then what? You move forward. You try again. You realize that one person's no doesn't define your value. When you rehearse difficulty in your mind with calm and clarity, it loses its power to paralyze you. Fear thrives in the dark. Shine a light on it, and it shrinks. Now let's talk about anger. Anger is fast. It's a flash flood. And if you react while you're in it, you almost always make things worse. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." Translation, the damage you do when you're angry is usually worse than whatever made you angry in the first place. So what's the strategy? pause. That's it. Just pause. When you feel that heat rising, that impulse to lash out, to defend, to attack, stop. Take a breath. Count to 10 if you need to. Walk away from the conversation. Sleep on the angry email before you send it. Give yourself space between the trigger and your response. Because here's what anger doesn't want you to know. It's temporary. It peaks and then it fades. If you can wait it out even for a few minutes, you'll see the situation more clearly. Epictetus said, "It's not the events themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those events." Someone cuts you off in traffic. That's the event. Your judgment, "This person is a reckless idiot who disrespected me." That's what creates the anger. But what if you chose a different judgment? What if they're rushing to the hospital? What if they genuinely didn't see you? What if it literally doesn't matter and you'll forget about this in 5 minutes? You get to choose. Not always easily, not always perfectly, but you do get to choose. And every time you pause instead of react, you're building the muscle of self-control. You're proving to yourself that you're not a slave to your emotions. You're free. Finally, let's address anxiety. Anxiety is tricky because it disguises itself as preparation. It says, "I'm just trying to keep you safe. I'm helping you plan ahead." But really, anxiety is just fear spread thin across time. And the antidote to anxiety is the same as it's always been. Come back to now. Right now, in this very moment, are you okay? Are you breathing? Are you safe? Is there an actual emergency happening right now? Usually, the answer is no. Anxiety lives in the gap between this moment and some imagined future. It wants you to solve problems that don't exist yet, and some that never will. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Not because the future doesn't matter, but because the future isn't here. You can't control it. You can't fix it. All you can do is show up fully for this moment and trust that when the future arrives, you'll handle it then. So when anxiety grabs you, ground yourself. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice 5 things you can see. Listen to the sounds around you. Take 3 slow breaths. You're not avoiding the future. You're just refusing to let it steal the only moment you actually have. This is where your power is, not in controlling tomorrow, in choosing how you show up today. These practices, facing fear with preparation, transforming anger with the pause, dissolving anxiety by returning to now, they're not quick fixes. They're skills, and like any skill, they get stronger with practice. The Stoics didn't promise you a life without negative emotions. They promised you a life where those emotions don't run the show. And that's everything. So what changes when you start living this way? Everything and nothing. Your circumstances might stay exactly the same. The difficult people are still difficult. The uncertain future is still uncertain. The challenges don't disappear. But you're different. You stop waiting for the world to give you permission to feel okay. You stop needing everything to be perfect before you can be at peace. You stop believing that your happiness depends on controlling things that were never yours to control. You realize that freedom isn't about changing your external reality. It's about changing your relationship with it. There's a moment, and you'll know it when it happens, when you're in the middle of a situation that used to destroy you, and you notice something unexpected. Space. Space between what happens and how you respond. Space between the thought and the belief. Space between the feeling and the action. And in that space, that's where you live now. not controlled by impulse, not enslaved by emotion, not tossed around by every shift in circumstance. Steady, grounded, awake. You start to notice that the thoughts still come, fear still whispers, anger still flares, anxiety still tries to pull you into tomorrow. But now, you see them for what they are. Just weather passing through. You don't have to fight the storm. You don't have to stop the rain. You just have to remember that you're not in the storm. You're the sky that holds it. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being dominated by destructive emotions. It's not that you stop feeling, it's that you stop being controlled by what you feel. You become the observer, not the victim. And from that place, you can finally respond to life with wisdom instead of panic, with clarity instead of chaos, with strength instead of surrender. This is what's on the other side of the practice. Not perfection, not constant bliss, not a life free from pain, but a life where you are in charge of your inner world. And that changes absolutely everything. So where do you go from here? You practice. Every single day you'll have opportunities to apply what you've learned. Someone will frustrate you. There's your chance to pause before reacting. Something uncertain will loom ahead. There's your chance to stay present instead of catastrophizing. A thought will tell you that you're not good enough. There's your chance to question it instead of believing it. This isn't a one-time transformation. It's a daily commitment. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations once and call it done. He reminded himself every single morning of who he wanted to be and how he wanted to show up. You'll forget. You'll react. You'll get swept up in emotion. That's part of being human. But each time you notice, each time you pause, each time you choose awareness over autopilot, you're building the life you actually want to live. Epictetus said it perfectly. No great thing is created suddenly any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. You're ripening. And every moment you choose presence over panic, courage over avoidance, wisdom over reaction, you're proving to yourself that you're not trapped. You never were. The prison was always in your mind. And the key. You've had it all along. So stop fighting yourself. Stop resisting what you feel. Stop believing that your thoughts are facts. Start observing. Start choosing. Start living like the sovereign of your own inner kingdom. Because that's what you are. The fear, the anger, the anxiety, they don't own you. You own them. Now go live like it. If you're done letting fear, anger, and anxiety run your life, drop a comment below, I own my mind. And make sure you subscribe to The Stoic Mode and hit that notification bell. This is just the start of your transformation into someone nothing can shake. Thank you for being here.